So now let's carry on. I was telling you the story of two Octobers, October the 8th, 2005 and October the 7th, 2023. It is part 2 of this video series and we're still on October 8th, and I was telling you about how a massive earthquake took place in the Kashmir region of Pakistan. It totally disrupted a lot of things. I was already watching global disasters, particularly since the 2004 tsunami that took place in Asia, and was really rattled and thinking, why is this happening and what does this mean for us? And using my various kinds of knowledge in order to figure out how to give better disaster relief and how to also get into reconstruction. We left at the point where I was talking about, where I was telling the story of what happened at this time and also weaving in different events that took place around that time and what this led to. And that should resolve some of the mysteries for people, particularly people of Pakistan who are more concerned with this event. Meanwhile, I have done a video in Urdu, not in English, speaking to my people in Pakistan, telling them how I realized that my work, the Salam Matrix, goes from one major concern for Pakistanis to another major concern. And the two things that Pakistanis often get on the streets about, as they are on streets right now in the capital city of Pakistan on this date, are the Kashmir issue and the Palestine issue. I will be changing my voice when I speak of Palestine in order to throw algorithms and AI off the bend a little bit to the best of my ability. Because some of these words are marked as contentious by the powers that be that are watching this. All right. So the Salam Matrix was birthed around and right before the October 8th Kashmir quake, and we reached Pakistanis started helping out the people. There were a lot of people on grounds in Kashmir. I felt like I wanted to be here, but it was not useful. The roads were blocked. I was not trained for it, and I would have been a burden. So I was in PAF Museum, that is Pakistan Air Force Museum in Karachi, which had these big grounds, and a celebrity, to be precise, Fakhre Alam, singer, musician, and DJ, had given a call on television. Remember, private media was really nascent at that time and was just starting out like a year or two before. And I was part of Geo Television, which was one of the major and early private television networks of Pakistan, was really popular amongst people, known for truth telling and exposing the problem that people really cared about. And later on, people just sort of stopped liking them as much. But at the time, Geo had a lot of influence. It was barely about 2 years old after its hard launch. There was a soft launch prior to summer of 2003 when it was launched. And here I was in 2005, autumn, organizing a relief effort, basically gathering relief goods and organizing them in PF Museum when I took charge of the arena. And one thing that I did was that I'll tell you what I did. There was stuff scattered all over a certain space. So imagine if the whole entire grounds where relief was this much, as you can see on the board. We had just a portion of it, and I managed it. And what I did was something really simple. People were like dumping all sorts of supplies there, from water bottles to medicine to blankets to shrouds for people who had died, and edibles and batteries, candles, and more edibles and shoes and God knows what else. So I essentially took over a certain portion of the grounds, and I made a team of volunteers. I started training them on the spot. So I took over like a portion of the ground, and I made a team, and I called them Team Labak. Labak literally means I'm answering the call, right? A lot of people are scared by these Arabesque words because they are used by outfits which then do things that are too much for the common citizens of the world. Labak literally means I'm answering the call, and I made a. What I did was that because there were lots of volunteers milling about on the ground, I picked up people who were educated, little doctors and engineers, and said, me in the center is going to train you. I'm going to give you a little bit of manual of how to organize things. So 5 or 6 of you people will become my voice and eyes and ears, right? And I will make you managers of your own little part of the uh, grounds. and the whole operation and all this content that we have herein. So somebody was manager of the edibles, somebody was manager of the shout, somebody was manager of the medicine, somebody was manager of a help desk that we created, and basically writing down all requests that were coming in and requests for volunteers, requests for things that people needed, and also dispatching things and redistributing them. So we created a help desk on the side, and I had a team of these 10, 11 managers actually. And I would periodically gather them and brief them on whatever the update was and send them back to their stations, which were placed around that territory, this map, like little physical places. And what I did was something simple. I asked people to write on cardboards things like fuel, food, shrouds, water, this and that. And we had a huge mess of indistinguished stuff. And I asked managers of different departments, like the shrouds department, the fuel department, the food department, the this and that department, to get their volunteers that were working underneath them to go and collect the thing that was pertaining to their department and take it to their section. So I do remember there was this doctor who was incidentally part of the shrouds department. And I said, go over this place, and wherever you see a shroud, do not touch anything else. You just take the shrouds and pick them in your arena, mark the space, and do not let anybody put oils or candles or edibles or granola bars or whatever was available, dry fruit or whatever in that arena. And so within a few hours, I started working at around 7:30 or maybe around 8ish, 7:30, I believe. And by 10 or 11, we had this thing organized. And even before that, by about 9 or something, there was this little tent which had medicine in it. And I approached that and I said, who's going in? Are you doctors? Are you pharmacists? Are you like related to medicine? No. And there was some doctors screaming outside. They're like, we know about the medicine, but there are volunteers here who don't know anything about it, just general volunteers, and they're just sort of, you know, organizing medicine while not knowing anything about it. And I said, I forbade non medical people to get into that arena, and basically made sure that we had some protocols developing. It was at that point that there was some army personnel or Air Force personnel that were milling about this place, and they saw me screaming and yelling, and they gave me a loudspeaker and they said, you please take charge of it. And that was such a monumental moment for me who had never worked with the forces, never with the police or anything or army. In fact, common citizens of Pakistan at that time were like afraid of that, because we did not have frequent interaction with them. It was part of their protocol and circumspection and carefulness that at that time they were not that visible or interactive with the civilians. So this was a time, October 8th, when two waters met. The forces side, the army, what are they even called? The three forces, the Air Force, Army, Navy, were meeting the civilians, right? So this was supposed to be a good moment. And then I was milling outside of my area, and I reached a space where all these personnel were sitting and they're looking really stressed out and haggard, and I could tell that they were really in deep shock. So we started telling them about the internet. By the way, that reminds me that at the end, near the end of the last video, I said the maps, the two maps, the Google Maps of destruction in villages in the Kashmir region were 3 MB each. No, they were actually 35-ish MB, 33, 35 MB each. They were big, massive maps, and our forces had not seen anything like it at that time, not in civilian hands and custody. They were like, wow, is it possible for civilians to have access to this kind of technology where you can see the maps of like what's destroyed, etc.? And we said, yeah. So they even requested the bloggers who were distributing these maps, can you please take them offline for national security reasons? And the bloggers then hid those maps. So bloggers were working in tandem with the forces of the country. And they were really nice to us. They were very nice to the civilians who were helpful. They said, take charge of this, help us out. And we are overwhelmed. They just said, do your thing. You're doing a great job, and just, tell us what to do and we'll help you out. So it was the civilians who were bringing empty trucks in and loading these trucks and taking them on the way to Kashmir. The calamity was so large and people were mobilized on their own. So it was a collaboration of the civilian plus the armed forces of Pakistan. And that was supposed to be a good time. That was supposed to be a time when Pakistan was waking up to a lot of needs and realities. That was also the time when Pakistan had come very close to threats of war and all kinds of, we were dealing with this prolonged war on terror, the main character of which was the USA, which was pushing and pulling global governments into cleanups. All right, so I took a tea break in between. I don't remember what I was speaking of before, but I was pretty much speaking of the thematic of the forces and the people coming together, and the forces finding out about the wonders of the internet. Meanwhile, I was part of the bloggers community, and not a lot of people were familiar with bloggers. In fact, my personal experience with blogging was that I could not handle some of it. There was a blog called Met Blogs. It doesn't exist anymore, but you can go to websites like metblogs.com. You can go to websites like archive.org and plug in MetBlogs and you can see it. And MetBlogs were basically started by some people in San Francisco, I believe, and they were creating city blogs for some of the chief cities around the world. So they had about, I don't know, 20, 25 cities on their panel, and Karachi was one of them. So basically, I found this a website, MetBlogs, somehow, because wasn't a lot of media and links, excuse me, on the internet at that time. So I found them. It was easy to find. There wasn't a lot of noise and crowd on the internet, and I found that they had this Karachi.metblogs.com or .org, and they were looking for bloggers to sign up, and there was a captain for each city, and in our case, the captain was, I believe, if I'm not wrong, Awab Alvi, whose father later went on to become the president of the country. Awab Alvi, Arif Alvi, his father was. And so a number of us signed up for MedBlogs, and I was one of the bloggers and wanted to blog lovely, nice things about the city. I blogged just a few blogs, but they gained a lot of traction and very well loved until I started getting trolled and I couldn't handle it and I left because at that time we did not have. Moderation for comments, which I spoke about, but there were a lot of people in all digital spaces like, why do we need to moderate? We need to be open, etc. And that is a plea that I've made on many spaces, such as Aurora. Aurora is a specific Yahoo Groups community, or was a Yahoo Groups community, and this was for Aurora magazine that was published by Dawn. So Aurora is a certain publication. I think it was published at least at that time once every 2 months and was specific to the marketing and business, particularly marketing and actually marketing and advertising sector of the country. And Aurora magazine started coming out around, I don't know, 2003 or something, I don't remember, but it was certainly very popular around 2005 and had an online community. So I was a blogger. I had my own blogger.com blog. Before that, I started blogging with chalk.com, I believe. And this was a blog space for Indian and Pakistani literati. It was very brainy, very nice, very decent as well. And then I went into on my own blogger, where I did not know that you can actually moderate comments. While technically you could moderate comments, I felt bad about it. But I feel like the digital spaces needed to be safe because the MetBlocks space was not safe for me. I eventually left. I don't know what time did I leave, maybe around 2005 sometime. And happened because I started asking the people that if you have something interesting, some photograph or something, because we didn't have smartphones at that time, most of us. So people used to have digital cameras. I said, if you have an interesting photo, why don't you send it and we'll write a story about it. We'll give you credit and we'll publish it. And somebody sent the photo of um, PIA decorating, that is Pakistan International Airlines decorating their planes. And so I put on a photo and then I was told for it. And I was like, I've had enough and I'm leaving. And I was also contributing to another blog at that time, which was by a person who was anonymous and remains anonymous to me. I'm sure other bloggers know about them. I was a very shy cookie, so I didn't had no um, courage to even ask the who's who of the blog world, like Awab Alvi, do you know who's Spark positive? To this date, I don't know who is Spark positive. I should have asked. I was a very shy person. And in fact, I expressed myself better in writing rather than speaking. I was also suffering from a lot of depression on account of having left my job in geo television. And in general, in life, I suffered from a massive robbery in 2001 November. That robbery is connected very indirectly and very weirdly to the 9/11 event. And what happened was that after 9/11, there was obviously a war on terror, and there was a fear that Pakistan would be turned into Afghanistan and totally carpet bombed or something. So basically, a lot of families, probably prompted by whispers and panic in the banking sector by the bankers, alarmed by the bankers, took their money and their jewelry, etc., out of the safes from banks and put them in the house. And systematically, house after house, those families were robbed, and our family was one of those families. I'm going to stop now, take a break, pause the video a little bit, pause my taping because we have prayer time, and then I'll be back. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Back I am, and time for a little break in the continuum of the narration. Here we are. This is who I am. This is my introduction. Currently Pakistani Himalayas based teacher of systems thinking integral framework means I bring everything together on one page. And my key work, an entire model, is the Salam Matrix that you should really check out. And if you go to my channel, the Salam Matrix is a special channel dedicated to this model and the teachings of it. You will find out what it is. Otherwise, my larger project is the Eco-Feminine, which is a feminine, not feminist, feminine, ecological, feminine framework for seeing reality and bringing things together, looking at the world through the eyes of the Divine Mother, in other words. In Urdu, I also call it Nizami Jamali. Jamali is the feminine aspect or the face of God, and Nizami Jamali is a system derived from motherly insights. So this is what I work in. Primarily, I root myself in the inner world and inner work, and I do a lot of psychoanalytical work or psyche analytical work. When I say psychoanalytical, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychoanalyst either. I look at things with my own frameworks, using some of the existing frameworks of the world. So do not argue with me about certain writers or teachers. I may not even have read them. I look at the world with totally fresh eyes, and my book that I refer to is the Quran, and I look at the archetypes of the world architecture primarily through the stories and so-called mythos of the Quran. Mythos does not mean false stories, it means structured stories, right? For those who do not know, on top of this board is written Auzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Twain statements that Muslims start their work with. The first statement is a statement of encapsulation and protection. Encapsulation and protection. This basically says, God protect me from the devil. Protection. And the second is of creation. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I start in the name of Allah, who is Rahman and Rahim. Rahman and Rahim are two names of God. Normally translated as merciful and beneficent, but I have another translation for it, which means they are creative and generative. Rahman and Rahim, the two names, come from the root letters R, H, M, or Ra, Ha, Mim in Arabic, which means womb. So these refer to the divine womb, divine creativity, divine love, divine motherliness, and the generative and creative and fecund quality of uh, divinity. I seek protection from all distractions and from what is called shaitan or devil or demons. And Bismillah ar-Rahman rahim. So these statements stay at the top of my board for those who don't know. These are my YouTube channels on the Eco-Feminine and the Salam Matrix. I teach Eco-Feminine is a generic umbrella. Salam Matrix is a specific tool. And also I have two other channels. Betterbonds.love is a herbalism channel. It's my business practice currently on pause. And Art Artist Sophia is my child's channel, which I manage. She's an artist in the making. All right, so we're going to get back to October 8th stories. We were speaking of what October 8th birthed for the country. And for me, as one of the people on the forefront of the kind of developments that were taking place in the country. So whatever was occurring, I happened to be right uh, at the forefront of it. And what was happening was that October 8th and social media became a key. October 8th and civilians met forces, also called establishment in Pakistan in some ways, though that doesn't have good connotations. And they were collaborative in nature, which was the start of something good, or was supposed to be something good. So we had social media, we had civilians, we also had activists, or I would call them actionists, people who took actual action. They were really helping the people of the country by arranging aid and building houses, shelters, and literally doing all the work that is needed to be done after an earthquake. And thereafter, I came up with the word change makers, which is now pretty common. Change makers are people who do actual projects, and there is currently also an element of using social media plus tech, IT, infotech and tech, right? Infotech plus tech in order to provide solutions to people's needs. In specific sectors, there was also ICT for D, which is using technology for development. So these were the things that were taking place. Also, disaster management and environmentalism was becoming a thing. It came in the focus, environmentalism. I also believe alternative ways of life became alternative tech and living. Because what happened was that things like architecture was questioned, and alternative tech and living and sustainability. How to not face such crisis again at such scale and have safe housing, safe living, have means of or access to disaster relief facilities close to you, etc., etc. For me, in my personal realm, it turned into a huge contemplation on local resourcefulness, community building, community, uh, tech, and in some degrees also politics that was engaged politics plus citizenry. People realized that you have to become active citizens. There was a whole natural tendency and movement towards that. It was a momentum that was building on its own and just some sort of broke through on the surface through divinely orchestrated events. Like we were being driven towards something, and that was something larger and bigger than us. And I think at this time and date, October 12th, 2025, when I am synthesizing all that, I'm realizing how we were being drifted towards something. And I'm very happy that I recognized the trends and I was there. I was witnessing them. I was not the most active or the most vocal or media savvy person. There were other people who were more into this, but I was reading the psychic undercurrents of it. I was reading the social undercurrents of it, and I was doing analysis and meta-analysis, right? So, and on my side, this is the collective side, collective, and this is collective, and this is me. I was also reading like the psychic meaning of this all psychic and how, if yes or no, this thing was bringing us towards a way of life that was ordained by my faith, which was something that I was also very concerned about. Because when I left my job in May 2005, and I was teaching entrepreneurship since I think June, July 2005, and I did Umrah, which is a mini pilgrimage in August 2005, I was being driven towards an so-called Islamic way of life, but I wanted not to become a radical isolationist, which I almost could have been. I, in fact, was working with a Muslim lifestyle magazine in Karachi, and was driven to really parochial ways of being and thinking, even things like parda, etc. But there was a chance that I could go down the slippery slope of being very extremely radical at the cost of being sane and at the cost of being sociable. So that was also something that I was looking at. What I realized, and I'm going to jump to the conclusion of what I got at, is that an ecological way of life is a very safe way of being a Muslim because it allows you to have your own periphery and your own privacy and live a more sustainable and conscious way of living, which was also something that was becoming very important to the entire world while you engage with the larger world. So, in the Islamic way, what we do is that we build our own little circumference and we operate within it by and large, and then we connect with other groups and circumferences. So the Islamic way of life is not oppressive as much as it's about managing your own business within its circumference. Which brings me to the concept of taqwa. Taqwa. I've spoken about it before, and I'm going on a totally different tangent right now. Taqwa. Islam is concerned a lot about taqwa, and a lot of people call taqwa as piety or fear of God, or like just being conscious of God, fear of God, or God consciousness. But I have a ecological definition of it, and I call taqwa circumspection. Circumspection means minding your own business and having your own framework and limits. And that word literally encapsulates everything. It's piety, it's fear of God, means fear of stepping out of your boundaries. Like, what is God? Since God is omniscient, God is omnipresent, God is everywhere. What does fear of God mean? It means just stepping beyond the boundaries that are made for you, because what is meant for you is not meant for the other, and what's meant for them is not meant for you. So, keeping to your path, being circumspect, using the least amount of resources, but enough resources to manage what you want, like being deliberate, being agile, being conscious, being smart, working smartly, living smartly, um, not having excess or not hoarding things, but also not being stingy, not being harsh on yourself. And Islam goes for the middle path. And people say middle path, it's not like the middle of something, it means moving towards your own center, moving towards your own being, moving towards your own design. For example, if you're a spider or a bird, then you eat spider and bird food. That is centering things towards yourself, being circumspect. If you eat things which you're not supposed to eat as a spider, you will not be able to weave your web and do your own circumspect and circular thing. I've taken you in a totally different dimension. And this is what I was realizing. And I actually started seeing, because I was already on social media, which is about being connected, about being web. I actually started seeing design in front of my eyes. Like I could actually see designs, like things getting circular and being very compelling. It was so powerful. I started writing about it, and I was like, I started writing about localism. I started writing about the environment. I started talking about community. I started talking about being connected, etc. It's taken me years and years to come to a point where I've been able to put all these things together in front of you right now today, saying this is how I'm seeing this web that was woven with me as kind of a non-conscious spider, understanding that there's something that is happening, but not really knowing what she was doing and what she was getting into or what she was engaged in. But it's today on October 12th, 2025, and the day before when I'm putting this together. And as I'm putting this together, these things are coming together for me for the first time as well. I did not know that I was going to put taqwa here. Guess what I was going to put here? And that should make some Pakistanis jump. One of the things that came out of October 8th, 2005, and since this is a 20-year-old event, a lot of people who are younger than 20 years old, and also people who are like 25, maybe 30, who would have been very young at this time, would not probably know how this event is related to somebody who is really beloved to a lot of people in Pakistan, but also has a polarity where there are other people who do not like him to the point of hating him. Imran Khan. Yes, my friends, if you did not know, October 8, 2005 directly led to the resurgence and revival of Imran Khan. A revival. And what basically happened is this. I'll tell you a short story. Pakistan was shaken after October 8, 2005, literally and figuratively. And we could feel that there was something in there that we were being called to change things. We were really scared of this 9/11 thing and the war on terror with which we had to comply. We were also facing things like constant off and on threat from India. I think in 2003, there was a time when Indian armies had come to the border. Pakistan was a weak country in formation. And when I had graduated in 2002, December, like at the very end of 2002, in 2003 and 4, when me and my other batchmates and my 1 year juniors were joining the workforce, we were actually creating a lot of companies. Totally, wholly, organically local Pakistani companies. I had joined one, that is Geo Television. And then there were other corporations like Telenor, which was, I think, a Norway based, Scandinavia based company that arrived in Pakistan, was being formed. So a lot of people were getting in the corporate sector. And the corporate sector was being formed so that we can have an economy. And I have some stories related to that as well. I started my first job in 2003 as a brand strategist, and I was part of an agency strategist, and our chief client was Unilever. I had applied for a job in Unilever when I graduated, and so I was available to work since January 2003. But they gave me a call around June-ish something. By that time, I had, I think, started my strategist job in March 2003, and by July, after working here as about for 2 months only and learning about brand strategy, and my boss was really nice. I was working at an agency called Bullseye, and one of our bosses, his name was Shuaib Qureshi, I believe, was a really nice person. Taught us some tools, which I'll tell you about in a different series of my work experiences and what I learned from them. Um, was a great visionary, but he only worked in corporate and advertising and marketing context, and he could actually make a lot of solutions for other problems of the world, for example, the development problems. But he was working in marketing and advertising sector only, and I was interested in development sector and economics and ecology and environment, but I was not able to articulate my interests that well at that point. Not getting the opportunity to get into this sector as a MBA that I was. So I wish I had studied other things like social sciences and environmentalism, but I did not go on that track. All right, so I did brand strategy for about 2 months, and then I jumped onto Geo Television. And after a while, I don't know, June, July, August, sometime, I was called by Unilever, but I was so nasty and so feisty. I told them, I said, well, I literally appeared for the first interview. They never called me after a course. And I said, I've joined a Pakistani company, that is Geo Television. But mostly I said that, um, I want brands that work for the poor people. Or I talked about some commie, some developmental thing that really freaked them out. Um, and as a brand strategist, also, I gave some ideas to Unilever which they could really use. I think at this time, right now in 2025, there are some conglomerates and multinational corporations that are actually on the verge of leaving Pakistan, something which I also talked about at that time and got trolled for, because I could sense that coming. Anyway, so I just chatted with the Unilever HR person about how I had this utilitarian and development oriented outlook. They were very nice to me. They had tea, and then uh, I was never called again. In Geo, I wanted to be probably on the screen talking about some developmental factor, etc. But I was put on a management position, and I was told that I had to sign a contract for 2 years. And the first year, they said you're going to do some managerial work, and the second year we're going to put you on screen and you can do whatever you want to. But I did not really walk on that path, even though I wanted to. And I grew in the managerial position because I was doing really well in it. And despite myself, like whatever work I did really well, though I didn't want to do it. So the first year, I tested and hired anchors for screen. I developed a criteria, a 10-point criteria for judging them and putting them on screen. And the next year, I wanted to be on screen myself, doing some kind of program, but I, first of all, failed some pilots for a certain program called Career Online. I did not look good in it, and I did not cooperate with the production because I think I got some dissociative disorder right in the middle of my audition. Like I couldn't tell, like this was really the camera was really rolling, and I would stop every time the producer spoke in my earphone. I was like, "Hey, stop! Somebody's speaking in my ear. I need to answer." And the producer said, "Ah, you just gotta go on." It was really funny. Anyway, so I did have some dissociative disorder. It's probably stemming from the fact that we were robbed, as I told you in my previous slide, on November 2001, a year before my graduation, and that event, as I told you, was linked to 9/11. So 9/11 was really hurting us. It was really hurting Pakistan and was also compelling Pakistan to change and develop a corporate sector, etc. However, I had this little commie socialist track in me without having actually read communism and socialism. It just was like a more welfare oriented, like the Muslim welfare, the Muslim commie, the Muslim socialist thing where I wanted welfare for the people. Perhaps I took the wrong track and didn't realize that you can actually use business for welfare of people. And I developed that track, and I came to that track somewhere around 2007, where I got into social enterprise and understood that enterprise can help people. But anyway, here we are, and I was working with Geo Television. Then I left it in 2005, and October 8th, 2005, 2005 happened. All this stuff was happening. What does Imran Khan have to do with it? What Imran Khan has to do with it is that I'm sure many Pakistanis were feeling this urge towards we want to do something better for our country, but we were ruled by media and corporate elite as the countries that are moving towards development tend to be, and there was no idea of grassroots development, etc., at that time, except in environmental sectors or activism sectors, right? So, as I say, I bring in. Opposites together through integral frameworks. So I'm looking at corporations, corporations of business, IT, development, environment, religion, or ethics, and all this is kind of coming together in my life. But I don't know what to pay attention to at what time. But this was coming together for me, and I'm pretty sure somewhere on the ground there were people, community leaders, heads of ethnic groups, activists working on the ground. There were so many things that I learned of during a 2002 internship that I did in IUCN, where there were people from Honza to Sindh that I came to know of who were working on things like craft and mangrove plantations, etc. So I was really into this world, but to connect this world with the corporate world or sort of turn these ideas into something profitable, something that was not just some kind of charitable or funded, foreign funded or externally funded operation, but was kind of regenerative in its own capacity, is something that has occurred to me over a period of time in later days. Yeah, so the whole country was kind of awakening to things, and different people, different factions in the country held different pieces of the puzzle, and to this day, they're kind of divided. The development sector is on one side, the IT sector is on one side, the corporations are on one side, environmental is on the other side, and religion is on the other side. This is why on October 12, 2025, we have this contention in the country where religious parties are on the road and they're not woven into the fabric of whatever it is that is supposed to be here. What does Imran Khan have to do with it? Imran Khan, who started Tehreek Insaf, or Justice Party, Movement for Justice, somewhere in the 1990s, had failed the elections and realized that he was not much of a politician. And he would say as much. I remember in the 1990s, when I was a teenager, I was really gung-ho about him, a fan of him, just like all youth tend to be. And his message is a youthful message, and its tone and energy and its mindset also, right? And in terms of its maturation. It's a message about change, it's a message about revolution, it's a message about breaking the order, etc. And it focuses on that kind of youthful mindset and energy. Beyond youthfulness is also aging and maturation, where you say, okay, now I've changed things and I need to bring them together and stabilize them and put them together, because we cannot keep on breaking things down perpetually and all the time. But there's a maturation arc to life and to societies and to things and projects and to persons as well. Imran Khan, however, is stuck perennially in the youth aspect, right? If he were a tarot card, he would be the youth. He's perennial, is a perennial youth. This is a sector to which he not it he appeals. Perennial youth. That's his mindset. That's his energy. He can turn 98 years old and yet he'll remain mischievous and youthful, and that's great because he needs to activate the youth and yet he cannot contain them. That is his problem. How did Imran Khan came to be is when these things happened and we all realize that social media and new tech and media itself, even mainstream media was new to Pakistan at the time, and newsiness and getting reports from the ground and talking about justice and Geo's cameras, and then other channels also came, ARY, etc. Their cameras, primarily Geo, though Geo had that kind of energy, would go to people on the ground. Oh, this car bumped into that rickshaw, that was the news. This person beat up that person, that was the news, etc. A man beat up his wife, or children were being not given good services in schools, blah, blah, blah. There's dump here, and broken gutter there, blah, blah, blah. People were speaking of their problems. They were really passionate about this. And so there was this energy that we need to change things. We need to make this country better. And now the huge, massive, important part of the country is totally shattered. We need to rebuild this. So there was this reconstructive energy, and there was a huge, massive black cloud over Pakistan, a feeling of doom and death and morbidity. And people were really depressed after this earthquake because there is a tendency in humanity to become doomsy and fatalistic and feel like this thing is forever and we're going to die. All of us are going to die and something new needs to happen. But people were really depressed across the board. The media people were depressed, the army was depressed, civilians were depressed, everybody was depressed, the whole of Pakistan was crying. Like, what do we need to do? Where can some sort of source of light come from? What can we do for the country now? So remember, everybody was on the same board. They may have been doing things in their own capacity which do not, when they're put together with the totality, work towards the welfare of the totality, such as the corporate sector, which tends to alleviate personal achievement at the cost of the collective. But we can have different kinds of corporations which are more socially aware. And then if they make the development and the welfare of people their chief goal, and they can design their financial structure around it. And that is something we still have to do, all right? But now there are a lot of local businesses and social activism that is turning into business that is achieving that objective. And yet, if you look at the corporate sector, which has now become the small business and medium business sector and online business sector in Pakistan, it's no longer corporate. You see that there are people doing really well, people who are doing home businesses and online businesses and all that, but there's still some kind of a competitiveness in that. And sometimes people still gain unfair advantage, and that's not equally distributed. And for that, we need to have some bigger framework and collaboration and some kind of ground rule or whatever, right? Because a lot of people do get unfair advantage, taking advantage of the social spaces of the internet, which were supposed to be for the welfare of all. But that still needs to be managed and regulated, and some entity needs to be, some benevolent overseeing entity needs to be there to make sure that opportunity keeps on getting divided and one person doesn't hog the attention. Like one person walks into a group, gets orders from everybody, probably even screws that up or whatever, or sort of monopolizes a market. So these rules still apply, right? I mean, you take care of them. The internet does not automatically take care of them. You need to have rules in place. And the more the power breaks down and the more there are local producers and local craft people, etc., power does break down on its own automatically. So that's a design aspect of grid laying of power. Anyway, people needed some kind of emblem of hope. And so what happened? I'm sure there were other people involved doing other things. But people started reaching the one person they thought was neutral enough and popular enough, and everybody liked him, and he didn't have a beef with anybody. People just in general liked him because of his personality and for Pakistan's love of cricket. And that person was Imran Khan. Amongst the possibly other people that reached him, I don't know who else reached him, was definitely Geo Television. Plus, basically, Geo Television is a subsidiary of Jung Group. Okay, they definitely reached him. One of the things that happened was that when the earthquake happened, different people put out appeals for funds in their own capacity. I used a fundraiser on the internet, and I put out an appeal for $5,000, but was not able to match my goals. We raised a couple of $1,000s, and then because it was a new mechanism, we were using a funding app. It was called fundable.org, and I had developed a wiki, right? So I was using a wiki Wiki is a website that you can edit like Wikipedia. Plus, I was using fundable.org to generate crowd funds, but we were not able to meet the goals of the funds reversed. And on the wiki, which is still available through archive.org, you can go and take a look at it. I was coordinating information, so my wiki's name was Help Pakistan dot wiki spaces .org, I believe, .org or .com. You can go and take a look at archive.org. And you will see that I was maintaining that, and my initials were F, H, and K, which actually stands for Fly High Kites, and Fly High Kites was named after the kite flying festival in Lahore that is Basant. So this is what it stands for, nothing else, all right? Even though it sounds suspicious like something else. So Jung Group, or Geo Television, Jung Group, of course, has a newspaper called Jung and other magazines and newspapers, and they started putting out appeals for raising funds. And they raised around 1 billion rupees, which is quite a lot of amount. However, now they didn't know what to do with it. They were not experts at building homes or arranging any kind of, earthquake-related work. So they didn't know who to give it to safely in order to avoid the blame of just collecting these funds and wasting them. So people started heading towards Imran Khan. They went to his house in Banigala, and I know a Jung Group official. I'll give his first name only, Nadeem. He went there and sent me some photographs. This process did take a while because by the time I think that I was being sent photographs and Imran Khan was being convinced to come out of his hibernation and he didn't want to. Sipping my tea, by the way. He was really disheartened in politics. He's like, I'm not a politics kind of guy. And he was also, I knew, pretty hurt about having to lose his wife, Jemima Khan. And he wasn't marrying. His life was on a pause, right? He was totally dormant. He was just, I don't know, in the background, living his school life or whatever. Um, he had divorced from Jemima Khan, and she was pursuing her own life and looking at other prospects, etc. And so his whole life was splattered. So people went to him, and he didn't want to be on board. So Nadeem Saab was one of the people who went to him and sent me some pictures around 2007 and 2008 and said, Beta, Imran Khan's coming back. Why don't you join this? And by that time, in 2006, I maintained this wiki for a long time, and I started getting into my deliberations about how the economy needs to be structured, etc. And I started writing those things down. In 2007, I went to a Sufi school as well. Hold on, 2007, I went to a Sufi school, and I was, just figuring out whether I need to walk an internal path, external path, or whatever. I was just working on those things. And when I came back from the Sufi school, I had a massive insight and download. I felt like, because all these things were coming together for me and I was working on development side, I had found out about social enterprise in 2004, by the way, but I had begun writing about it. I wanted to write about these things, but this was taking me a lot of time. So I started going online and maintained blogs and started talking about these things. I was also getting trolled on my personal blog. So I went on other sites and contributed to them and talked about how, citizen journalism was a thing, social enterprise was a thing, and other things of that sort, like solutions that were based in this new technology and new media that we were calling it at that time, which was powered by people. And people, influencers, which we later called, were going to become a power. The word influencer had not come about, but we knew that there was some kind of people who were going to use media, social media, to generate their own circles and then influence them to do things which are good or bad things, depending upon what they really chose and which way they went. Because there's no coercion or compulsion in it. People choose what they want to do, and they can learn from their failures and successes and then change their strategy on the way forward. So by the time 2007 occurred, Facebook, I had joined Facebook at around May or June. And by 2008, there were groups on Facebook. And I told people that I do know that there's going to be a massive environmental collapse. and the governmental structures are going to change because of technology, because of the world coming together, because of people learning more about each other, and because of ongoing colonialism and wars and so on and so forth. And I even started picking up the language of, socialism and empire at that time. I learned things like patriarchy and colonialism, which used to make me freak out and even make me laugh, but I started understanding what those things are, what they stand for. However, I've always been a very creative kind of person, a very positive kind of person, driven by brilliant aspects of Muslim teachings, which are very positive and which are very humane and very global. And they're not even restricted to Muslims. It's like God's message for the whole world, like a brilliant, beautiful message for the whole world, a message that is about hope and change. Meanwhile, Obama came and surfaced, and Obama actually won the election. And the dark cloud of the world post 9/11 just split apart. Here was this black man speaking of hope and change and using social media in a big way to bring about this new way of being and whatever. Um, so the day Obama was elected in November 2008, I went to Facebook and I said, well, I need to do my own part in hope and change because I do know that a massive dip and collapse is coming. Environmental talk, the climate talk was really discouraging and very doomsday and made it sound like the world was going to be rent apart and getting destructed. Movies were coming out of tsunamis and earthquakes and shatterings, and we had actually seen a tsunami. I had not seen um, the tsunami, the Asian tsunami, anywhere close by. Only on media, it really made me cry because videos were playing in our media office over and over and made me cry. But I definitely got a glimpse of this earthquake, which is not physically testified, but it psychically shattered things really bad. It was really shaking the brain, I'm telling you. Nervous system is shaking, it was really bad. And you could actually feel like this dark, dark cloud in Pakistan. The air was so dense you could cut it with a knife, or butter knife even. Sorry. Mm. So this is a time when people started looking for heroes, like who could they go to? And there was a lot of hope being seen in the youth sector, but we were really teeny tiny people, many of us very young, trying to establish our own careers, did not have money, did not have transport, and the parents never gave us permission for anything and sabotaged and tanked everything. So we were battling our own mental issues and health issues, and I can't get married, and I can't go take a rickshaw to go to this conference or whatever, dealing with these really childish issues. Even in, I was definitely in my 20s, we were dealing with these ridiculous issues. And I know there were other bloggers with me who used to talk about things like my mom is depressed and dad is dying and this is happening and this brother doesn't have a job and another brother has read a book about the end times and the jar is suffering from craziness, all sorts of things. So we had a lot on our plate. So people did go for Imran Khan, who had clout, he had connections, but he was, and people would not like to hear it. Everybody knew it. He knew it. He had a bit of a playboy thing. He had this stylish, filmy thing about him, and actually, that was a characteristic of people in the 70s and 80s. In the 70s and 80s, smoking cigarettes, drinking, playing around, fooling around, flirting with women was a thing. To the extent that those of us who are old enough, sorry, you can't even see what I wrote. Those of us who are old enough would remember that there was a time when Pakistani cricket team was notorious for misbehaving when it went abroad, and somewhere in the 1990s came sort of a Islamic revivalism or revolution in the cricket field in Pakistan. The cricketers started praying, and those who were not Muslim turned into Muslim, and they became very conservative. And that had to be done because our cricket teams were notorious. They would go to Australia, they would get drunk, they would not play well, and just really a very inchoate and notorious country. And so, Junk Group and television, they went to Imran Khan. I'm sure amongst other people as well, but I'm just talking about the slice of this pie that I know of and that I saw this whole event through. So I'm speaking of my lenses, okay? Don't say this person went to Imran Khan as well, that person went to Imran Khan as well. I'm sure they went, I don't even know about them, but I was the pictures that I was sent from Banigala in 2008, I believe, because I had opened my Facebook group, I remember. It was running well and it was gaining attention amongst the people who were paying attention to it because I invited them to join it was this Nadeem guy who was actually into vegetable gardening. So he was like an activist in his own life, in addition to being a junk group person. And he said to me, Bacha, you're doing this really great work, amazing work. Why don't you join Imran Khan? Because we're bringing Imran Khan back. I was like, nah, I'm not going to do it. I was really scared of being part of politics and joining men because I was like, nah, man, nobody in my family has been part of politics. And I'm sure I would walk into some dark flirtatious or whatever thing and not be able to take the energy of this. So, no, I was very happy working from home and not getting into corporations and not getting pulled into elitist circles or flirtatious men or this or that because many of them abound. I've seen them all my life. They're in corporations and there are a lot of male predators. They don't even care for women. And we could be small insects to people, even if they care for us and are respectful. We are small teeny bits to people. And I don't want to deal with their power and to collide or collude with their power. I just wanted to do my own thing. I felt very powerful taking charge of my life and my words through social media. So I was like, I'm doing my own group. My group was about it was called My Kitchen Garden Project and growing your own vegetables. And working towards food sovereignty. So in November 2008, I started that group the day Obama was elected, and I was like, "This is my part of hope and change," and I wanted to scale it up from there. I My proposition was that let's start with food sovereignty and then start working on other issues as well, issues of healthcare facilities for women, issues like education for people, access to technology, and this and that, just developmental issues. At the same time, the TED conference also came on surface and became popular, and I learned of it in 2008 and gathered my people, my blogger and change maker and burger people, and started talking about. I said this TED platform has come, and maybe we can have something similar. And in 2010, we had something called the Oneness Breakfast, which talked about social issues as well as spirituality and became pretty popular for a while. We just had a few gatherings of Oneness Breakfast, but there it was. All right, so Imran Khan did start coming on surface. Meanwhile, I was falling off from the social circuit, becoming very meditative and very, Sufish, etc. And I started staying at home even more and walked my own path. And I was so behind my screen all the time that I became very used to sitting behind the screen and working on my own projects, which catered to things like being an artist and writing and my own psychotherapy and walking through my own trauma and wounds, etc. And I totally lost the drift of what this thing was. Don't know what came about, but I do know around 2010 or 11, this guy started surging. And that was the time when I actually wanted to leave Pakistan because things were not working out for us. And my family was also planning to migrate. So it's like I've done my bit for Pakistan and I'll carry forward the rest from abroad somewhere. Um, and yeah, and I also was really really scared of this environmental thing which was talking about how there was going to be a doom and gloom. I heard about the 2012 phenomena where the western media was talking about, western social media was talking about how the world is going to end in 2012. I had a huge doomsday feeling. So I did not join the Imran Khan movement. I do know that a lot of my blogger friends, certainly people like Hubb'Allah, etc., whose father I think was always part of PTI in its first incarnation in the 1990s, stayed with him, were part of the revival, and then went on to become Arif Alvi Saab went on to become the president of Pakistan as well. So Imran Khan came up, and Imran Khan was he had been on a break and a lull. And the thing about him was that his mentality was of the 1980s, or at most the 1990s. That's where he had fallen off the radar and he was stuck there, right? So when he came back and when he researched in 2010 and 11, I believe he had this massive rally in 2011. He picked up from the 1980s and 1990s. And in 1990s, the two major political parties of Pakistan, that is PPP and PML, which later went on to become PMLN, the major faction of it, were notorious, and people were always looking for the third alternative. What happened, and I should start covering that in the third part of this series. What happened with Imran Khan was that when he came, by the time that he revived or started moving towards political reactivation, though he really didn't want it for all the political personal reasons, and because he really wasn't a politics guy, he was more of a revolution guy, more of a inspirational guy, more of a motivational guy, more of a youth movement guy, and he was the kind of person who, in my view, could have activated the youth and then assigned them to the tasks that were already there and other people were undertaking and were works in progress for other sectors, instead of starting his own isolated movement, which is a mistake that he did, right? People who were already part of other political parties or people who were part of other political projects, he could have transformed them and said, "You can do this job better, and you can do this job right," and everybody would have appreciated him. But he went on his own track, and he had elements of revenge and anger and grudge in him, and really had an older mindset, a mindset that was revolutionary in the 1990s, but not in the 2000s, and definitely not by the time 2005 occurred, where everybody was, these different contrasts and these traditional oppositions were coming together. So when he came, he had his power, he had his charisma, he had his force, he had his revolution, but he was on a divergent path where you put things apart and create a fight and conflict rather than resolving conflict. Why do we resolve conflict? Because we are all on the same planet together. And in Pakistan, we're all in the same country together. And different people are working on different aspects of things. While they are focused on their own aspects, they are cruel and unjust to other aspects. But when we start coming together and start negotiating, that is when we become fair. This is what integral framework's about. This is what systems thinking is about. This is about negotiating, coming together, give and take until you reach a fair and just equilibrium. And that is what Imran Khan could have done had he not had the mindset of 1980s, which was more conflict oriented. So the world was moving towards a collaborative model, whereas Imran Khan woke up and came back and woke up in the conflict oriented model. And that became a mistake. Also, he was being supported by the establishment and the powers that be in Pakistan with good intent and purposes. Because during 2005, the forces of Pakistan, the establishment of Pakistan, worked with the civilians and said, "Well, you got the good people. Let's give you a charge. Let's give you the leader that you want and do your thing." But the leader that woke up did not bring people together. He started challenging everybody. He woke up with an old mindset. And that is when things fell apart. And that has become the tragedy. That is why, while he is a revolutionary person, he has a potential, he has gone into reverse time in the wrong direction. That is why, while he's still good, he's still loved, he was supported, he is being contained by the very same people who supported him and who wanted him at that time and still want him. But he is not understanding that he is operating in an archaic and old framework, making a misuse of the technology of the 2000s to fulfill the goals of the 1990s. I should take up this thing in more detail in my next video and go into places where I'm kind of afraid to go into because it'll really ruffle feathers. But this is something that people should understand. A lot of people who are under 20 or around 25 years of age, who were little babies at the time, will not know what was happening before and what journeys we took to arrive at this place. They're too young people diverge, they go in conflict states, they have to fight, they have to revolutionize, they have to break things up. But after breaking things up, they come together. So the country was in the arc of coming together, and we needed to in order to fight with our external enemies and overcome our internal weaknesses. And this is the wrong thing that, it's just um, it's like a man turns 25 years old and it's time for him to get married and start his family, but he goes back to school. So going to school is a good thing, but not when you're 25. And if you continue to do that, you continue to do these past loops, you're always going to remain a baby and things are not going to come together. Whereas your biological and your social need is that you set up a family, you get married, you have babies, and you just move on. So we are constantly going into these regressive cycles. And I will do a third part in this video where we'll talk more about what is happening with Imran Khan, why is he stuck in jail, why he possibly cannot go out, and the chances that he missed right around the time that he was arrested and detained, and what he could have done and what he may still do. It's already too late for certain generations, but there are a lot of younger people in Pakistan who are not losing in time. But overall, as a country, Pakistan is losing time and opportunity because we have outside world impacting us and working on us, and the world is taking a certain shape. And because Pakistan reversed itself into the 1990s during the 2000 and 2010s when the world was coming together and making new alliances, this is looking really bad for us and can really regress our development and allow the enemy to overcome us. The enemy is within, inside us, and without. Our own selves can be our enemy. If you're weak, you are your own enemy. So I want you to really look forward to the third part of it, which will be focusing on Imran Khan, for better or for worse, and pay attention to it. And let's see if we can find some way forwards for ourselves, for Pakistan, for the country, and maybe even for Imran Khan and his fans. I hope he will listen and he will be transformed. And if not, then we are looking at really dark things for him, but not for the rest of the country, because we do not have to depend upon him for our survival. Our Allah is Allah, our provider, our giver, our container is Allah Pak, who is Hayyu Ya Qayyum, the ever living, the alive, the awakened, and he doesn't go anywhere. Stay with me. See you in the third part, inshallah, of this epic video of the 2 Octobers. We're still in the first October, October 8th, and we'll come later on to October 7th. Jazakallah salam. And go check out the salammatrix.org. Like, subscribe, and share my video, and leave your comments. And leave your questions in anticipation of the Imran Khan video if you have any. All right, Assalamu alaikum.